Chapter 1. The Contract and the Cold Eyes. Ryan didn't speak a word the entire ride to Zachary Thorne's penthouse. He sat quietly in the back seat of the sleek black car, clutching his backpack like a shield across his chest. The driver, an older man with silver at his temples and kindness in his silence, didn't ask questions. No one did anymore. Not since the papers were signed. Not since his father's trembling hand gave him away like a pen scratching out a signature. Ryan was 24, but he felt 12 again. Small, afraid, voiceless. The kind of voiceless that came not from muteness, but from knowing your words didn't matter. He'd seen Zachary Thorne twice before. Once from across a courtroom hallway when his father begged for an extension on a loan he couldn't repay. The second time was at the negotiation, a word so neat and tidy for what had really been a transaction. Zachary had sat with his fingers steepled, dressed in a black three-piece suit like a devil preparing a contract. His hair had been slicked back, his eyes unreadable behind dark lashes, his expression the kind that made grown men sweat. And now he was going to be Ryan's husband. The word didn't sit right in his mouth. Ryan had whispered it to himself once in the mirror and nearly cried from the weight of it. Husband. As if this were a real marriage. As if he'd chosen this. The building rose like glass and steel ambition against the sky. It was the kind of place you didn't just live in, you conquered. The doorman nodded as Ryan stepped out, backpack still clutched tight, fingers pale and tense. The elevator was silent, save for the low hum of ascent. When the doors opened on the top floor, it felt like stepping into a different world. The penthouse was cold, beautiful, in a magazine sort of way. Marble floors, tall windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, art on the walls that probably cost more than Ryan's entire student debt. It looked like no one lived here. Not really. No shoes by the door, no dishes in the sink, no sign of a life shared. And there, standing in front of the glass wall overlooking the city, was Zachary Thorne. Ryan had forgotten how tall he was. Not just tall, broad, solid, built like someone who hadn't lifted a single thing in years but could still crush you if he had to. He turned slowly, hands in his pockets, eyes landing on Ryan like they were calculating something. Ryan's stomach turned. Hi. Zachary nodded. Your room's down the hall. Second door on the right. I won't be in your way. That was it. No welcome. No congratulations. No, you're safe now, or we'll make this work. Just cool detachment wrapped in a voice that could cut steel. Ryan nodded quickly, ducked his head, and walked toward the hallway like a soldier heading into unknown territory. The door creaked slightly as he opened it, softly furnished, nothing extravagant. A bed, a desk, neatly folded linens, a window seat that overlooked the city. The room was gentle, unlike the rest of the penthouse. Someone had chosen this space to be softer, more human. Was it Zachary? Ryan didn't ask. He unpacked quietly, changed into his comfiest hoodie, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the door, wondering if it would stay open if he didn't shut it. He hated closed doors. That night, he barely touched his dinner. Zachary sat across the table, scrolling through a tablet. He ate silently, like it was a business meeting. Ryan watched his hands, long fingers, precise movements. Every part of Zachary seemed engineered for control. Ryan dropped his fork. The clang echoed. Zachary glanced up. You don't have to be afraid of me. Ryan froze. I'm not, he lied. Zachary didn't call him out on it. He simply went back to his tablet. Later, after retreating to his room, Ryan tried to sleep. But the silence was too loud. The door felt too close, the bed too foreign. He tossed and turned, his chest tightening. The air grew thick. His hands trembled as he sat up, gasping. Panic attack. Damn it. He opened the door, stumbled into the hallway barefoot, pressing a hand to the wall to stay upright. He didn't want to cry. Not here. Not in Zachary's home. But tears burned anyway, sliding silently down his cheeks. He didn't hear Zachary approach, just felt his presence. Large. Still. Ryan flinched instinctively. But Zachary didn't speak, didn't touch him. He looked at the open door, at Ryan's shaking hands. Then he walked past him, down the hall, and sat on the floor. Right outside Ryan's door. He leaned his back against the wall, long legs stretched out in front of him, phone in hand. Calm. Unbothered. What are you doing? Ryan whispered. Zachary didn't look up. Keeping the door open, in case you need it. Ryan didn't sleep right away. But when he finally drifted off, fingers curled in his sleeve, heart still sore, He felt a sliver of safety he hadn't known in years. The next morning, determined to express gratitude and distract himself, Ryan decided to make breakfast, which turned out to be a mistake. The eggs burned. The toast jammed in the fancy chrome toaster that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Smoke curled into the air, and the alarm blared with a shriek. Ryan panicked, flailing at the smoke detector with a dish towel. No, 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 no. Footsteps. Zachary emerged from the hallway in sweatpants and a half-buttoned shirt, hair rumpled, eyes alert. He didn't yell. He didn't even look surprised. He calmly reached up, twisted the base of the smoke detector, silencing it with practiced ease. Then he turned to Ryan, took one look at the mess, and silently opened a drawer. He pulled out a protein bar, handed it to him, and said without inflection, "Next time, let's just order." Ryan stared at the bar. Then, slowly, he laughed. Not much, just a hiccup of air. But it was real. Zachary raised an eyebrow. "I fail to see the humor." "I almost burned down your entire penthouse," Ryan said, still breathless. "And you handed me a snack." Tilted his head. "Would you have preferred I yelled?" "No, God, no. Ryan shook his head, still smiling weakly. "You're nothing like people say." Zachary didn't answer that. He just walked to the espresso machine, started making coffee like the conversation hadn't happened. But Ryan saw it. The corner of Zachary's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. Chapter 2. A trip, a tie, and a terrible first kiss. The weekend retreat was held at a private estate tucked into the hills of the countryside. An expanse of manicured gardens, stone villas, and old money that never had to announce itself. For families like the Thorns, it was a tradition. For Ryan, it was a trap wrapped in white linens and champagne flutes. He stood beside Zachary at check-in, tugging nervously at the collar of his soft blue sweater. He wasn't dressed like the others, men in tailored suits, women with sleek ponytails and silent diamonds. He felt like a guest at someone else's funeral. Zachary, of course, looked completely at home. Dark slacks, a slate-gray shirt, cufflinks that glinted like tiny daggers. He placed a firm hand on Ryan's lower back as they entered the main hall, guiding him with the ease of someone used to possession. To anyone watching, they looked perfect. A married couple. Ryan could almost believe it himself, until someone walked past and whispered, "Poor thing. Doesn't he know Zachary ruined the last one?" Ryan flinched. He didn't see who said it. He just stared down at his shoes and kept walking. The retreat was a charade. Seminars on partnership, unity, corporate synergy masquerading as marriage therapy. Every couple here was either strategic or showy. Zachary's name was spoken in low tones, followed by praise or fear. There was no in-between. At dinner that first night, Zachary kept his hand over Ryan's. Not possessive, just there, warm, grounding. He leaned in once to whisper something about how boring the appetizer was, and Ryan startled from the tickle of breath against his ear. "You okay?" Zachary asked. Ryan nodded too quickly. "Fine, just new." Zachary studied him, quiet, then glanced away. He didn't press. The next day brought workshops. One of them, somehow both silly and terrifying, was called Trust the One You Chose. Couples had to tie each other's hands loosely with silk cords and take turns blindfolded, guiding one another around a path designed to test communication. Ryan hesitated when it was their turn. I don't think I'm good at this." "You don't have to be," Zachary said simply. "Just trust me." Ryan held out his wrists, and Zachary tied the cord with slow precision. Neither too tight nor too loose. Their fingers brushed. The knot sat between them like a vow. Then Ryan slipped on the blindfold. Everything went dark. He could hear whispers, light footsteps, laughter from other couples, and Zachary's voice, low and steady. "Left. 3 steps," he obeyed. "Now pause. There's a slope." Ryan hesitated, then his foot caught the edge and he stumbled forward, but Zachary was already there. Strong hands closed around his arms, steadying him before he could fall. "I would never let you fall," he murmured. Ryan's breath caught. For a moment, he didn't want to remove the blindfold. It was easier to believe the words when he couldn't see Zachary's unreadable face. Later, back in their room, Ryan found a box on the bed. Inside was a silk tie in a deep emerald green, so vibrant it made Ryan's fingers twitch. He remembered seeing it in a boutique window 2 days ago, pausing for a second too long before continuing on. "You," he turned, holding the tie in disbelief. "You bought this?" Zachary was unbuttoning his cuffs. "You looked at it like it mattered." Ryan blinked fast. It was just pretty. It's just fabric, Zachary said, suddenly defensive. You don't have to get emotional about it. I'm not, Ryan's throat tightened. No one's ever remembered something that small. Zachary looked genuinely panicked for a second, as if Ryan might burst into tears. You don't have to keep it. Throw it out if it makes you uncomfortable. Ryan hugged it instead, quietly. I'm keeping it. That evening, the retreat hosted a formal dinner in the estate's grand ballroom. The chandeliers glittered like 1,000 watching eyes. Ryan wore the new tie, nervous under the weight of attention. Zachary was elegance incarnate, black suit, hair combed with deliberate sharpness. He kept Ryan close, touched the small of his back, whispered names of important people in his ear. Ryan didn't know how to respond. He just tried not to trip. They found their seats near the front of the room, and Ryan was finally beginning to relax when a woman in crimson silk approached their table. She had the kind of face that belonged on a magazine. Sculpted cheekbones, perfect smile, eyes sharp as needles. Zachary, she purred. Still stealing hearts and breaking them, I see. He stood politely, but his arm remained around Ryan. Alara, she looked at Ryan like he was a garnish. And this must be the new husband. Ryan managed a smile. Hi, she laughed softly, turned her attention back to Zachary. I would have expected someone taller. The implication was so sharp it nearly drew blood. Ryan stared at his plate, something ugly and hot coiled in his stomach. Her hand grazed Zachary's forearm lightly, too casually, too familiar. Ryan didn't think. He just moved, leaned up, turned his face, and kissed Zachary. It wasn't planned. It wasn't practiced. Their teeth clashed. His nose bumped Zachary's cheek. He overshot the angle, landed awkwardly on the corner of his mouth. Zachary's eyes widened. A sharp inhale. His hand gripped Ryan's waist instinctively. The room went silent. Alara raised a brow. Well then, that answers that. She turned, amused, and walked off in a cloud of perfume and judgment. Ryan flushed deep red, backing away. I didn't mean. I was trying to. She was just... Zachary stared at him for a long moment, lips still parted. Then he chuckled. A real one. Low and surprised. That, he said dryly, was the worst kiss I've ever had. Ryan wanted to sink into the floor. Sorry. I was trying to defend your honor. Zachary shook his head, smile growing. You kissed me like you were trying to win a game of bumper cars. Ryan choked out a laugh. You're not mad? Zachary leaned in, gaze softer now. No, but we should try again sometime. Preferably without an audience. Ryan's cheeks burned, but for the first time in days it wasn't fear, just the kind of warmth that made his chest feel too small for his heart. That night, as they lay in their separate beds with a wall of quiet between them, Ryan reached out to touch the emerald tie where it lay on his nightstand. He held it close to his chest and smiled into the dark. Chapter 3. The Panic Room and the Party Guest. Ryan had never liked locked doors. Even when he was a kid, the click of a lock, no matter how soft, sounded like a cell slamming shut. He hadn't realized how much it still affected him until he found one in the penthouse. He wasn't snooping, not exactly. He'd simply gotten lost trying to find a new book to read. Zachary's home was enormous, too quiet, too sleek, with long hallways and doors that all looked the same. He opened one, found linen, another, a gym. But the third, tucked away near the back of the apartment, was different. It was locked. And not with a typical doorknob, but with a sleek biometric panel. Cold, glowing blue. High-tech. Unwelcoming. Ryan stared at it for a long minute, pulse rising. He wasn't sure why it scared him. Maybe because it reminded him that he didn't really live here, that he didn't really belong. He didn't ask Zachary about it that evening. He tried. Twice. But Zachary had come home late, still in his shirt sleeves, head buried in his phone. He barely spoke during dinner, though he slid Ryan a plate of his favorite noodles without asking. It was thoughtful and somehow distant at the same time. Ryan kept the questions down with his food, but later that night, in bed, he stared at the ceiling. The memory of that glowing blue panel burning behind his eyelids. Something about it made him feel trapped again, like something dangerous was always waiting just behind a locked door. The next morning, Zachary didn't say much. But that night, just before midnight, Ryan heard a soft knock at his door. When he opened it, Zachary stood there barefoot, dressed in a dark t-shirt and sweatpants, looking more human than usual. "I want to show you something," he said. Ryan blinked, confused but curious. He followed without asking. They walked in silence until Zachary paused outside the locked door. He held up his hand, pressed his palm to the scanner. The blue light turned green. The door clicked. Inside was nothing like Ryan expected. It wasn't a vault or a weapon room or some terrifying hidden cell like his spiraling imagination had conjured. It was small, plain, soft gray walls, a stocked mini fridge, a bench with cushions, a generator unit humming softly in the corner. "It's a panic room," Zachary said, stepping inside and flipping a switch that brought up soft lighting. "For emergencies. High-profile threats, earthquakes. I built it after someone tried to break into my home last year." Ryan hovered near the doorway. "You're safe here," Zachary added. "You don't ever have to go inside. I just thought you'd sleep better knowing what it was." Ryan's throat went tight. He stepped in slowly, heart pounding for an entirely different reason now. "You noticed I saw it?" Zachary nodded. "You looked terrified the rest of the day." Ryan sat down on the cushion. "You keep noticing things." Zachary didn't answer that directly. He just sat beside him, close but not touching. The silence stretched, not heavy, not uncomfortable. "I used to be locked in rooms," Ryan said quietly. "When I was younger, when I cried too loud or asked too many questions." Zachary's jaw tightened. "You never have to explain anything to me," he said, voice low. "But you want to understand," Ryan said softly. Zachary turned to him. "Only if you want me to." Ryan looked down at his hands. "I don't even understand myself half the time." "Then we'll figure it out together." Something in Ryan cracked. Not a break. A small shift. The next day, Zachary made changes. Subtle ones. He started warning Ryan before the apartment's cleaning staff came. He stopped holding meetings in the living room. He switched from music playlists to ambient sound. Bought a second kettle so Ryan could always make tea without waiting. Replaced the shrill intercom buzzer with a silent notification system. And one afternoon, a small package arrived on Ryan's side of the kitchen counter. Inside, a pair of sleek, matte black, noise-canceling headphones. No note. Ryan tried them on and nearly cried. That weekend, Ryan's phone buzzed with a name he hadn't seen in a while. Mira. His closest friend from college. A bright, wild thing with red curls, a tongue like a whip, and a heart big enough to house a country. She was visiting the city for an art show and had insisted on seeing him. Ryan asked Zachary for permission to invite her over before he realized how strange the question sounded. Zachary only said, "It's your home too." That shouldn't have made his eyes sting, but it did. When Mira arrived, it was like a hurricane of warmth and sarcasm blew through the penthouse. She wore a leopard print coat over jeans that had definitely been attacked by scissors and hugged Ryan like she was trying to crack his spine. Then she saw Zachary. Her expression shifted to something sly and deeply unimpressed. "So," she said, tilting her head, "you're the billionaire who looks like he eats interns for breakfast." Zachary, to his credit, didn't even blink. "Only the ones who can't spell." Ryan snorted into his tea. Mira raised a brow, then grinned. "Tache." They had lunch. Mira talking enough for 3 people, Zachary mostly silent but not unkind. Ryan laughed more in one afternoon than he had in weeks. Mira told stories of their college days, reminded him how he used to dance when drunk, teased him about his terrible taste in sweaters. Zachary didn't say much, but he watched. Watched Ryan laugh. Watched how his shoulders loosened, how his voice rose and brightened. Watched like he was memorizing something precious he didn't want to forget. After Mira left, she texted Ryan a selfie of them with the caption, "You look alive again." And then a second text sent minutes later. "Keep him. I think he likes the way you laugh." But it wasn't until later that evening when Ryan was showering that Mira cornered Zachary in the hallway. She didn't knock. She just appeared, arms folded, expression unreadable. "Can I say something?" she asked. Zachary looked up from his phone. "I assume I can't stop you," she smiled. "You're not what I expected." "Disappointed?" "Still deciding," she said with a shrug. "But I know this. Ryan's not like other people. He doesn't heal fast. He won't show you the blueprint of how to love him. He's quiet. He freezes when he's scared. He shuts down instead of fighting back." "I know," Zachary said. "Good," she said. Then softer. "Don't try to fix him." Zachary's brow furrowed. Mira's voice was firm. "He's not broken. He's just been hurt. Big difference." There was a pause. Then Zachary said, "I don't want to fix him." "Then what do you want?" "I want him to feel safe." Mira studied him for a long time, then nodded once. That's the only right answer. She turned and left without another word. When Ryan returned from the shower, he found Zachary on the couch, glasses on, reading some dull report. But his voice was soft when he asked, "Did you have fun?" Ryan nodded. "She likes you? I think." "That's concerning." Ryan smiled. He settled beside him, not touching, but close. Close enough to feel the safety he hadn't known he craved. The locked door in the hallway didn't scare him anymore. Chapter 4: The Threat, the Truth, and the Night on the Couch. It started with an email. Ryan almost deleted it without opening it. The subject line was vague, "Long time, Rye," and the sender was unfamiliar, but something about it made his thumb hesitate over the trash icon. A breath, a flicker of old panic. When he opened it, the contents dropped like ice into his stomach. A screenshot, a message thread. The kind of things people said when they were trying too hard to be loved. And then a final line, written in Brandon's voice. Too familiar, too sharp. "Let's talk before I talk to the press. You know how curious people get about your new husband." Ryan dropped the phone. It clattered against the marble tile. He stood there for a long time, not moving, the world buzzing around the edges. The panic was subtle this time. Not loud and choking, just a slow, suffocating numbness. He didn't tell Zachary. Not that night. Not the next day. He knew he should. But the shame, it pressed into his skin like fingerprints. What would Zachary think? That he'd been weak enough to send those messages, to believe Brandon's sweet words, even after the bruises? That he had pictures he'd trusted someone with? No, he couldn't tell him. Instead, he moved through the next few days like a shadow. He smiled less, ate less, jumped at phone notifications. Spent longer in the shower, water washing over him like it could erase memories that weren't physical. Zachary noticed. Of course he did. He didn't say anything outright. But he watched, quietly, closely. And then 3 days after the email, Zachary came home later than usual. His shirt collar was open, hair slightly windblown, expression unreadable. He didn't say where he'd been. Ryan was curled on the couch, knees tucked under his chin, a book open and unread in his lap. He looked up when Zachary entered. Their eyes met. Zachary didn't smile. He walked to the liquor cart, poured himself a short glass of whiskey, and then finally spoke. "You weren't going to tell me." Ryan stiffened. His fingers gripped the book. Zachary turned to him, eyes dark. "Brandon sent that message 4 days ago." Ryan's breath caught. "I have people who monitor threats," Zachary continued calmly. "Everything that touches your name touches mine. It came to me eventually." Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came. His throat closed. He felt cold, humiliated, like someone had ripped off his skin and left him shaking beneath the lights. "I didn't know what to do," he whispered. "I thought if I ignored it." "You thought you had to handle it alone," Zachary cut in, voice low, dangerous. Not directed at Ryan, at something else, something much older. Like no one would stand beside you. Ryan's eyes welled. "I'm sorry." Zachary sat beside him, carefully, gently, like approaching a wild animal. He didn't touch him, just looked at him with something too intense to name. "I'm not angry that he reached out," he said. "I'm furious that he made you feel small again. Furious that you didn't think I'd protect you." Tears spilled. Ryan shook his head. "It's not you. It's me. He made me feel like everything was my fault. Even now, I still hear his voice." Zachary's jaw tensed. "I took care of it," he said softly. "I went to him. He won't contact you again. He won't contact anyone. I bought the hard drives, his accounts are locked, and the photos are deleted from every server. I left him with silence and a lawyer who eats men like him for breakfast." Ryan sobbed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. Just this quiet, broken unraveling, like something finally gave up trying to stay whole. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he choked. Zachary moved then. Pulled Ryan into his arms without a word, held him like a thing already his. "Next time," he whispered against Ryan's hair, "let me hold the knife." Ryan buried his face in Zachary's chest, heart pounding, body shaking, but safe. For the first time since that email. Since long before it. The next morning, the box arrived. Flat-packed IKEA shelves, apparently a gift from Mira, who had texted, "You said he needed a hobby. Enjoy." It came with no instructions and about 1,000 pieces. Zachary stared at it like it had personally insulted him. "We could hire someone," he said flatly. Ryan sniffed, still hoarse from crying the night before. But then we wouldn't get to experience the life-altering trauma of arguing over pegs and dowels. Zachary raised an eyebrow. You're teasing me. Ryan blinked, realizing he was. I guess I am. Zachary gave him a rare, genuine smile. Good. Let's see what kind of disaster we can create. They built it over the course of the afternoon. Zachary read the instructions like he was strategizing a corporate merger. Ryan kept trying to sneak steps ahead and got scolded like a mischievous intern. They got the top shelf backward, undid half their work, and then laughed when Ryan dropped an entire bag of screws under the couch. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, Zachary muttered. But this will break me. You're not scary when you're building shelves, Ryan said with a smile. Zachary looked up at him then, surprised, not because of the words, but because of how easily they came, how warm they were. By evening, the shelf stood victorious and slightly uneven against the living room wall. Ryan had never been prouder of anything. They collapsed on the couch together, limbs tangled, both exhausted and laughing quietly at nothing. Ryan's head found Zachary's shoulder. Zachary's arms settled around him without hesitation. The lights dimmed on their own, smart home automation finally doing something right. The city sparkled outside the windows. Neither of them moved. Ryan whispered, I'm glad it was you. Zachary tilted his head. What do you mean? The one I had to marry. Zachary didn't answer. Instead, he shifted, just slightly so Ryan's body curved into his. One hand ran soothing lines down Ryan's back. Gentle, patient, present. And Ryan slept. For the first time in years, without pills. Without fear. Without waking in the dark to silence that sounded like a threat. He slept curled against the man he'd been forced to marry. And for the first time, he dreamed of nothing. Chapter 5, The Night I Thought He'd Leave. The invitation arrived in a crisp cream envelope, sealed with real wax and embossed gold lettering. It was for the wedding of one of Zachary's distant business partners, some heir to a vineyard fortune marrying a politician's daughter. It was less about love and more about power consolidation. Ryan knew that even before Zachary explained it. But still, Zachary asked, Would you come with me? It wasn't phrased like a command. It wasn't businesslike. It sounded like a real question. Ryan blinked up from the couch. You want me there? Zachary shrugged, hands tucked into the pockets of his slacks. They'll expect us both, but I wouldn't make you if... I'll go. Ryan interrupted too fast. I want to. He didn't realize how true that was until the night of the wedding. The event was held in a grand hotel that looked like it had been carved from ivory and gold. Marble floors, chandeliers like frozen rain, violins whispering from a stage. Guests arrived in shimmering gowns and silk suits. The air buzzed with money. Ryan stood beside Zachary in a dove-gray suit that Mira had helped him pick out. The soft color made his sea-glass eyes glow. His curls were a little messy despite his best efforts, and his tie was the emerald one Zachary had given him weeks ago. Zachary, in contrast, wore sleek black again. Sharp lines, sharp jaw. Sharp stare that deafened every time it turned to Ryan. You look. Zachary started, then trailed off. Ryan tilted his head. What? Zachary cleared his throat. Distracting. Ryan flushed from head to toe. They made it through the ceremony, barely. Zachary was stiff the whole time, clearly impatient with the fluff of speeches and slow, drawn-out vows. Ryan found it endearing. He kept poking Zachary's arm during the worst of it, whispering jokes under his breath. You're the only one laughing at a wedding, Zachary muttered. Would you prefer I cry? I'd prefer you not make me look like I'm smuggling a smile in front of 1,000 people. That made Ryan laugh harder. The reception was where everything changed. There was dancing. Zachary didn't look thrilled when the announcer opened the floor, but Ryan tugged his sleeve. Just once. Zachary raised a brow. I don't dance. Ryan's eyes sparkled. Neither do I, so what could go wrong? They joined the floor, awkward at first, like two puzzle pieces trying too hard to fit. Ryan stepped on Zachary's foot once, then again. Sorry. You're a menace, Zachary muttered, but there was laughter in his voice. They swayed, slowly finding a rhythm. Zachary's hands rested on Ryan's waist. Ryan's arms looped loosely around his shoulders. The music faded beneath the sound of breath and heartbeat. I like this, Ryan whispered. Zachary bent his head, pressing a kiss to Ryan's hair. Me too. But perfection doesn't last. It was after the dancing, when people loosened ties, downed champagne, started talking louder and meaner, that it happened. They were walking back from the bar when a familiar voice cut through the crowd. Well, if it isn't the trophy husband. Ryan froze. Brandon. He hadn't seen him enter, hadn't even thought he'd be here. But there he was, leaning against a marble pillar, drink in hand, smirking like the past hadn't happened. I'm surprised they let you out in public, Brandon said loudly. Didn't figure Zachary for the type to buy damaged goods. The words sliced through Ryan like a whip. Conversation nearby halted. Heads turned. Zachary stilled beside him, the hand on his lower back tightening. Everyone waited. Zachary turned slowly. For a moment, Ryan thought he'd lash out. A punch. A cruel retort. Some public, brutal takedown, like the one that had destroyed Brandon's reputation weeks ago. But Zachary didn't move toward Brandon. He stepped in front of Ryan instead, took his hand, lifted it, and said, loudly, clearly, "He's not here because of me. I'm the one who begged him to stay." The room hushed. Brandon's smirk faltered. Zachary didn't look at him again. He guided Ryan away, one hand on the small of his back, the other still holding his fingers like a vow. They didn't speak on the ride home. Ryan stared out the window, throat thick, Zachary's jacket draped over his shoulders. He didn't even realize he was crying until Zachary handed him a tissue in the elevator. "You can't say things like that," Ryan whispered. "People are going to think you care." Zachary looked at him, unblinking. "I do." Ryan's heart cracked clean open. The penthouse was dim and quiet when they walked in. Zachary started to head toward his room, but Ryan grabbed his sleeve. "Don't go." Zachary turned back, waited. "I don't want to think about him tonight," Ryan said softly. "I don't want to remember anything before you." Zachary stepped closer, brushed his thumb against Ryan's cheek. "What do you want to remember then?" Ryan's answer was a whisper. "You." The kiss came slowly, no panic, no breathless rush, just warmth, want. Zachary's lips were soft and steady, coaxing rather than claiming. Ryan melted into it, arms sliding around his neck, holding tight. Zachary didn't push, didn't rush. They moved through the apartment like they were afraid to break the moment, hands wandering, eyes searching for permission at every turn. Zachary kissed his neck, the corner of his mouth, his collarbone. Every time he looked up, he asked silently, "Is this okay?" And every time Ryan answered the same way, with fingers tightening in fabric, with whispered yeses against his skin. They ended up tangled on Zachary's bed, fully clothed but breathless. Zachary kissed down his jaw, buried his face in the crook of Ryan's neck, murmuring things Ryan didn't fully hear but felt all the same. "Just," Ryan said, voice thick, "don't stop holding me." Zachary did exactly that, all night. Chapter 6, The Man I Married and the Key to Everything. 2 months. That's how long it had been since Ryan kissed Zachary for real. Since the night he whispered, "Don't stop holding me," and Zachary never did. And everything had changed. Not all at once. Not dramatically. There were no epiphanies or fireworks, just slow, steady shifts. A little more laughter, a little less silence. A feeling in Ryan's chest that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't something broken waiting to be discarded. He started therapy. Zachary had found the therapist himself, someone warm and kind, the kind of man who didn't raise his voice and let Ryan speak in metaphors until he was ready to be direct. Zachary never asked what they talked about, but he always checked how Ryan felt afterward. Sometimes he waited with a thermos of hot tea outside the office. Sometimes he left a note in Ryan's coat pocket. "Proud of you." Always signed with a tiny drawing of a knife. Ryan got a part-time job at a little bookstore 4 blocks away. It smelled like paper and possibility. The owner, a quirky woman in her 60s named Pam, hired him on the spot when he accidentally reorganized an entire shelf while waiting for her to come out of the back room. "You shelve like you've seen war," she said. "Welcome aboard." He loved it. He liked the regulars, the soft chime of the bell, the little coffee cart out front. He came home smelling like ink and cinnamon, cheeks red from the walk, eyes brighter than ever. One morning, Zachary caught him swearing at the toaster. "Son of a stupid metal box," Ryan grumbled, slamming the lever down again. Zachary froze in the doorway, wide-eyed. "Did you just swear?" Ryan turned. "What? You swore," Zachary said, deadpan. "My delicate sensibilities." Ryan burst out laughing, eyes crinkling. "You've heard worse in boardrooms." "Yes," Zachary said, stepping into the kitchen, "but never from the mouth of my angelic husband." Ryan rolled his eyes. "I'm not that angelic." "You're right," Zachary said with a grin. You're terrifying when cornered by burnt carbs. Life felt good. It felt full. But good things never came without consequence. The rumors started on a Thursday. Ryan was in the bookstore, stocking poetry, when his phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, alerts, headlines, Thorne marriage shocker, no prenup. Who is Ryan Wyatt, really? From trauma to trophy inside the scandal. Ryan's blood ran cold. He scrolled past photos, blurry shots of him and Zachary at the wedding, leaving restaurants, even a grainy image of him laughing in the bookstore. And worst of all, comments. He was bought. How naive is Zachary Thorne? Watch the divorce settlement break records. He closed the app, turned off the phone, sat on the floor between Shakespeare and the poetry of survival, shaking. Across the city, Zachary stood in his office, expression unreadable, jaw tight. His assistant knocked. "Should I cancel the press conference?" "No," Zachary said quietly. "Prepare a statement. I'll step back from the Alta deal." I won't drag Ryan through this," he cut in. "If I step down, the noise dies faster." Ryan heard about it secondhand, from Pam, who read the news aloud like it was a soap opera. He didn't wait. He changed into his nicest button-down, borrowed Pam's coat because it was raining metaphorically, even if the skies were blue, and took a cab straight to Zachary's office. There were cameras outside, dozens of them. Ryan hesitated, breath held. But then he saw Zachary through the glass, standing alone at a podium, preparing to step away from the thing he'd built just to protect him. No, not like this. He pushed through. Security tried to stop him, but Zachary looked up and everything froze. Ryan walked straight into the room, to the podium, and took the mic. "He didn't break me," Ryan said, voice shaking. "He built me back." Silence. He swallowed. "You all want a scandal? Fine. Here it is. A man with too many walls married someone who didn't believe in doors. And instead of breaking each other, we held hands in the dark until the light came in." He turned, met Zachary's stunned eyes. "I wasn't bought, I was found." The conference ended in stunned applause. They left through the back. Zachary's hand gripped Ryan's tightly, silent and burning. That night, while Zachary showered, Ryan snuck into his office. It was the coldest room in the penthouse, all glass and concrete. No color, no comfort. Ryan changed that. He replaced the hard chair with a soft one that curved and cradled. Added a second seat, just in case. Placed a framed photo on the desk, one Mira had taken of them building IKEA furniture, laughing with screws in their hair. Stocked the drawers with Zachary's favorite tea. Even changed the harsh lighting to a warmer hue. When Zachary walked in later, towel still slung around his shoulders, he froze. Ryan stood in the corner, nervous. "You changed my office," Zachary said. Ryan nodded. "Now you have a place to breathe, too." Zachary didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he crossed the room, pulled Ryan into his arms, and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Later that night, on the balcony with the city stretched below them, Ryan held out a small silver key on a thin chain. "What's this?" Zachary asked. Ryan pressed it into his palm. "To my heart, to my fear, to everything." Zachary stared down at the key, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a second one, gold, identical in shape. "This is to mine," he said. "Then let's never lock the door again." They kissed. Long, deep. No more questions. They fell asleep skin to skin in Zachary's bed, no spaces between them, no ghosts under the bed or locked doors in their hearts. And for the first time in years, Ryan dreamed of nothing. Because for once, finally, he was safe.